welcome back to the rationalinvestor.com Broiler Chicken Show. Trade your trading plans, don't take too much risk on any one trade, and just let yourself get rich. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the rationalinvestor.com's Broiler Chicken Show. Happy Sunday. Bark. Yes, it's a bit of a quasi-holiday. I'm not quite sure how the Europeans handle this. I don't know. I mean, I don't really hear. It's funny, in North America, we don't really hear too much about European holidays. Here in North America, of course, here in the Great White North, we used to call it. I suppose you're probably not allowed to call it that politically correct nonsense days today. Anyway, we used to call Canada the Great White North. We are getting ready for the snow to start falling. I wouldn't even be surprised if it has actually started falling in Quebec. Where actually the old expression when I was a broker, God, actually I'm really missing those days. I got a hankering to go get my broker license renewed and head back over and hang out with my VSC buddies from eons ago, although many of them are dead. Anyway, years and years and years ago, I used to work with a guy called Don Valou out of Quebec. I think he was out of Montreal. Can't remember just off the top of my head. Anyway, any of you who remember Onion, and I doubt any of you remember it. I would be damn impressed if there was anybody watching this video who actually was around in the days of Onion. Anyway, Union Securities with the brothers. What the hell were the name of the brothers? Jesus, my memory's going. Anyway, actually, I even played one of their stocks last cycle, made great money off of it. They ran up stocks, so they're just continuing to do everything that they've done in the years gone by. And actually, I've got a basket. I've got a basket of about 3 or 4. Oh, hello, piece of banana on my shirt. 3 or 4 VSC stocks that I could actually get into creating a sales pitch and getting out there and selling people stock again. Anyway, today is I guess it isn't today, but Monday is officially Thanksgiving holiday here in Canada. Although I doubt many of the newly minted Chinadesians even have a clue what Thanksgiving even is. Based on the interactions that I've had with these newly landed Chinadesians, they're not even really thankful for anything. But anyway, I digress. No point in stewing over things you can't control. Down in the States, it's Columbus Day. Not really a quote unquote holiday. Actually, it was kind of funny. In this whole woke nonsense stupidity, they're trying to marginalize Mr. Columbus. And I always found it amusing that the Sopranos, whenever you saw them talking about Columbus Day, and slowly they're trying to marginalize Columbus. And they're like, this is anti-Italian. These people are just racist. That's what they are. It's so this is sort of like the Italians' day to celebrate their heritage in the States, and it's being stolen from them by I don't even know, some woke agenda trying to dilute the old population and brainwash us into being computer zombies, I suppose, with no identity and no sexuality and whatever. But I did find it amusing here today that the BBC actually has got an article going here. I was kind of joking with people earlier. It turns out that Mr. Columbus actually has a Jewish, where was it? Um, a Jewish, here we are, is likely Spanish Jewish origin. So the Italians are like, hey, wait a minute, what the hell? You said, what's going on here? Crazy world. All I'll say is, I mean, I think it's worth noting that in 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. We're supposed to learn that a million years ago in school. The irony of it all actually is they actually have found European coins in where the hell was it? I think it was someplace in the Maritimes that predated. They were like dated like 1200. Because theoretically, I think it's Leif Erikson, but maybe that's just the historical reference. But the Norwegians, they've actually been here in North America since some people even since like the 10th century. So I don't know whether Columbus is getting everything stolen from him. I wasn't the first in North America. I'm not even an Italian. Poor old Italians. Anyway. So it's a quasi holiday weekend. I'm not going to go into the whole National Indigenous Day and all that. I mean, keep in mind, you want to do yourself a favor and see how wonderfully happy-go-lucky these indigenous people are. Go watch the movie Dancing with Wolves and the way that the indigenous used to torture their victims, and if their victims screamed, that made them happy, because that was the victim, their soul being captured by the people who were torturing them. So I don't know whether it's in our society's best interest to be so lovey-dovey with the indigenous populations. I'm not quite sure how we got off on this tangent. I thought it was hilarious. My great uncle, he used to work for Indian Affairs here, and how ironic, you're probably not even allowed to call it that department anymore. And at one point, they did a study, and they contacted all of the indigenous populations of the British Columbia, and they said, "Please make your land claims." And it turns out that there's like something like 11 different nations of these indigenous people here locally in the lower mainland. And if they had doled out all of the land according to these land claims, it amounted to 150% of the territory available. 150%? How the hell does that work? Oh, it turns out that these various different indigenous nations all hated each other, and they warred and murdered each other. And like I said, these indigenous, oh, they are like nasty motherfuckers. And there's a reason why they called these people the heathens and stuff when the Europeans first came in here, because they were brutal. I mean, have you ever seen people and the stories about scalping and stuff? I mean, nasty, nasty shit. So I don't know whether I want to get sucked into falling in love with the indigenous population so much. For some reason, we have this big lovey-dovey relationship now, and I think it just serves this sort of 1%. We've got to dilute the sort of the white man, so he no longer has any sort of political power, and of course, we all turn into computer zombies. And if anything, what we have to do is try and divide these humans as much as possible. Just keep dividing, keep dividing, keep dividing, keep separating, and diluting any sort of political power base. That's what I think's going on with all of this stuff. Of course, terribly politically incorrect. And how could you say such things about these wonderful indigenous people? I mean, the problem is we humans are humans, and we all know how nasty humans can be. So I really don't think it's a good idea for any of us to get wrapped up in any of these ethnic or indigenous or whatever you want to call them blurbs. We're all humans. and we all should be exactly equal, including myself and including everybody at TRI. No one is better than anyone else, and no one has any rights more than anyone else. We are all equal in the marketplace. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, happy Columbus Day. You can call it whatever you want. I'll keep calling it Columbus Day. And of course, like I said, happy Thanksgiving here in Canada. After I'm done this, of course, I'll head out and Liam and I'll have our father-son Thanksgiving, I guess, together. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this, but we'll figure it out. And I appreciate all your best wishes. If anything, Liam doesn't care one way or the other, whether you're white, black, brown, green, purple, indigenous, non-indigenous, European, African, doesn't make any difference to him. So why would it make any difference to me? Anyway, happy Columbus Day. Econs do see a little bit surprising, I guess. In a weird sort of way, it almost feels like China is how do you describe this? I saw a really interesting video over the weekend about how in the 1970s, everybody and their brother was shilling how Brazil was going to be the next country to overtake the United States of America as the leading economic engine of the world. And I even remember when I was a kid, Pele was all the rage. World Cup there in '76, I think it was, in the Olympics in the '70s. I think '76 was the Olympics in Montreal. And wow, what a disaster. If anything, the 1976 Olympics is a perfect analogy of how completely fucked up these Chinese can fuck everything up, economics and the socialism right over the top. They didn't actually officially pay down the debt of the 1976 Montreal Olympics until something like, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 2003, 2004 or something. I mean, it literally took like 30 years to pay down the debt. That's how much debt that they incurred for that Olympics. And it was a total, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a disaster, but, economically, it was just a train wreck. And, Quebec did suffer for many, many years and sort of just fell into the sort of the back burner. But anyway, point being, 1970s, saw some great articles over the weekend about how Brazil was deemed the country that would take over from the United States of America. And I don't know, how's that story gone over the past 30, 40 years? Disaster. And I mean, here's another controversial thing just to piss a whole bunch of people off. This whole climate change shit and global warming and their obsession with punishing people for carbon emissions. Well, how about we just stop burning down the fucking trees and chopping down the trees? I mean, that's the problem. We could probably solve global warming issues very quickly if everybody just goes out and plants a damn tree, regardless of emissions. Anyway. Brian, of course, full of piss and vinegar and controversial opinions, right, left, and center. Demonetized. I haven't sworn too much. So I do see a lot of parallels with this whole Chinese nonsense. Well, actually, Chinese, that's something completely different. China, Winnie the Pooh, stupidity, and all that. Politburo, I mean, totalitarian dictatorships. I see a lot of similarities between the Brazilian story and the China story. And frankly speaking, I think it's probably going to play the same way. Also, hearing a lot of people talking about how China will try desperately to export its way out of this disaster that it's created for itself. But actually, there are a lot of countries that have had enough of this exporting nonsense. When the Americans were going through their respective fear cycle and were desperate for capital, I think that they played ball with China. Now that we're on the other side of the equation and the Americans don't even really need the Chinese anymore, I think that the story of them exporting their way into economic prosperity, I think those days are over. Which I do find fascinating because, of course, everybody's going to be, and they are continually thinking backwards. So it's fascinating to see the news out this weekend, of course, is that the Chinese themselves are trying to stimulate their local economy with a whole bunch of stimulus plans. And, you could see that the Chinese stock market had been bid up. We had played Alibaba as an example in the space. It was basically on its knees. It's had a fairly substantial rally. So you could argue that once that dead cat bounce is played out, I think a lot of names in the Chinese space and all that were oversold. The anticipation of this government stimulus news. Okay, now it's here. Is this buy the rumor, sell the news? And of course, who is about to arrive on the stage. And I don't think he's going to make China's life comfortable at all over the next 4 years. So, to all intents and purposes, I'm actually feeling as though that market needed a relief rally. It got it. And now one might even argue that it could probably go back into the cupboard now for the next few years, while we play with Mr. Trump here for the next few years. I always say you can't write better fiction than reality. Man, you couldn't have scripted a better scenario for Mr. Trump to come waltzing back in and take power back in the United States. I don't think these Democrats have done themselves any favors whatsoever. And why on earth they hitched their trailer to this commie Cammy, I have no idea. Terrible public speaker. Really can't think on her feet at all. Actually, I even watched an interesting, no, I don't know if it was interesting or not, but a pep rally kind of thing with Trump there the other day. And he very fluidly, we're going to start drilling. We're going to bring the oil price down. We're going to start encouraging, local production of well, I don't think you can really do a hell of a lot with the agriculture. There was something in particular that he said that I thought that actually resonated with me about him bringing food prices down. I couldn't remember, but it didn't have anything to do with price controls. And his power base, they're all like, "Oh, go Trump! Oh, yeah, okay, you do it. Yeah, you're gonna save us." All that. And you listen to Commie Cammy talk, the solutions that she's providing, they're hollow. They're just I don't know whether you watched that 60 Minutes interview, but Jesus, that was just a train wreck. And what's funny is guys on the social media, on the internet, there's this guy, RJ Speaks. I always say RJ Talks or something like that. I like listening to him. And he was even saying that the version that the public saw of that interview was the best clips, the best snippets that they could of that interview. Just imagine what the raw interview was like. Oh, we can't include that. Nope, can't include that. Can't include that. So, and we've been sort of joking about it on the site. This poly market site, crypto, and if anything, what a great sort of endorsement for crypto. They've been kind of leaning towards Mr. Trump coming back into the fore here for a little while now. There was, of course, a little bit of a, I don't know, call it maybe a bit of a honeymoon or something along those lines when Commie Cammy first sort of stormed onto the scene after they basically pulled a fucking palace coup on poor old Joe Biden. He's probably still sitting there going, "What the? Did anybody get the license plate of that bus that just ran over me?" But you can see these numbers are starting to get pretty startling. And if anything, Trump's even said, look at we have to have a landslide victory. Because if this is even remotely close, then the 1% are going to cook the books like they did last election. He's going out saying, look, it's got to be a landslide. That's the only way we're going to be able to win this. Interesting. These kind of numbers, that is going to be a landslide if it turns out that way, which is fascinating. Actually, for all of you interested, for whatever it's worth, there's actually a local election here in China, but it's a provincial election in British Columbia, the province that I happen to live in. And I think it's going to be a pretty good sort of proxy for how the general population feels, because British Columbia unto itself is actually an incredibly leftist society. You look at the whole damn west coast of North America. I'm not quite sure why it's this way, but very, very leftist leaning. And the talk is that the leftist government that's in power right now, they are going to be run out of town on a rail. So this is actually this should be an interesting tell for and it's coming up here, I guess on the 19th is the actual election date. Yeah, on the 19th. So I think it's basically, I guess it's next Saturday. Isn't that interesting? I thought it was Wednesday. Anyway, if you happen to be in BC, get out and vote, do your thing. But this will be an interesting tell, because I have a feeling that this election is going to have way more to do with just how shitty these socialists have fucked our society up here over the past 4 or 5 years with this absolutely insane, over the top socialist agenda, the horrific money printing, and the horrific, basically justified explosion of these government debt loads. And sadly, what I think's happened here, and I've lectured you guys at length about this, I actually think that this is part of the banksters' plan. Klaus, Great Reset. You simply have to add a zero onto the end of all your prices. And if you don't like it, here's my penis. Get down on your knees, get to work. There's just nothing you can do about it, which is so sad. I mean, this is why a lot of revolutions and shit happen. And it's consistent, every 80 years, you can set your watch to this stuff. So, because I remember back in like the 90s and stuff, governments would like run budget deficits, and all of a sudden, all hell would break loose. Credit rating agencies would go up in arms, and politics, it would be all the, oh my God, you're running a budget deficit. Oh, all your credit ratings the interest rate you're gonna pay on your debt's gonna. Where did all that conversation go? It's non-existent these days. And I think the reason why is because the 1%, who now unfortunately owns the media, and kind of like what you see with this whole election nonsense, how they're actually like promoting commie cammy as a realistic alternative. I mean, you want to see how bad this is? But Kalshi or whatever, I think this was one of the sort of political betting sites that that's owned and operated by the 1%. Interesting how they've acquiesced now, because I've shown you this repeatedly, and I've done a bunch of tweets about this, where even in the middle of last week, and I do find that actually a little bit I don't think that that's actually what the way we were saying. They actually had Kami Kami here quite ahead for quite a bit. And even through all of last week, I was like, these guys, there's some, I have a feeling actually that they're fucking around with this data set. This is not accurate. Because I remember even just, Thursday, Wednesday, stuff like that, pulling this up, and they still had Kami Kami winning. And they just sort of begrudgingly, because this site, which is not really operated, run by the 1%, they just showed this spread getting wider and wider and wider by the day. Um, anyway, good analogy of the way that this society is so fucking controlled by these 1%. You can't even really, the media and all of like media, radio, television, interneting. I mean, you can't even really listen to any of this. It's all manipulated, and it's all, what's so ironic is this guy started out like what, 10, 15 years ago going fake news, fake news, fake news. And even I then was sort of like, what the hell is he talking about? Fake news? I grew up in a world of like people like Walter Cronkite. I never heard of him. Peter Jennings, right, and all them people. You actually had faith that the media was actually, it was called the fourth estate, or is it the fifth estate? I can't remember. And it was supposed to be completely separate from the influences of government, the influences of clergy, even the influences of the bourgeoisie, and they were supposed to basically hold everything accountable. But obviously, that's changed since the end of the Cold War, and all these media outlets now are all owned and controlled by major corporations who have their own agenda, Larry Fink and all that shit. So it is fascinating that Mr. Trump kind of started to call this out a decade or two ago, and now I think everybody in the world is just completely they're reticent to the fact. I think that's the right word. I don't know. That you can't even really trust any media that you listen to. They're just not reporting the news. They're reporting their opinion. Anyway. Oh, what a wonderful world we live in. Anyway, because we have this huge political event coming up here in the next, 3 weeks, can't really make a huge comment on the market. And if anything, I really don't like the look of this market. This market to me looks kind of dangerous. There was a guy who was on, I can't remember what his name is, down out of the southern states, where back last March he had a dream that Trump was going to get shot, but he was going to survive. And I think he got quite a bit of notoriety around the first assassination attempt. How ironic! Now there's like multiple assassination attempts. You can't write better fiction than reality, folks. I'll tell you that much, by crackers. Anyway, he said in his dream he saw Mr. Trump get shot and survive, and then go on to win the election. And then he said a little while later, there's an absolute collapse in the world markets. Probably all he saw was like the Dow or something in his dream. And all hell was going to break loose. But eventually things were going to stabilize, and we will see new highs. So it's a bit concerning when I look at prices of assets and what's happening here as we're heading into this, obviously very significant event. It doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. I'll tell you that much, by crackers. So, we look at the stock market. Here is our longer term picture. One thing that does jump out at me is that I do think that, this is my core belief. Wondering whether maybe I might even just think about maybe retiring from public and maybe just sit and quietly write a book about my experience in the .com days, and now the experience in the I don't even know what the hell you call it, shop teachers with fake breasts poisoning our children world. And in a weird sort of way, I actually think that, and this has just been my sort of observation of markets over my career, that usually markets don't actually move in just sort of like one direction, one A to B. That's not usually how markets move. You would think that they would, but they don't usually work that way. Usually it goes boom, boom, boom. So you have like an initial move, you have a cleanup move, which does nothing more than sort of relieve this overbought condition. And then you have like a secondary move. So it actually moves in like this zigzag pattern. So I do think that from the manufactured crisis low, this was the last time that we had these politicians and stuff say stupid things like, I will sacrifice my life for capitalism, all that nonsense. And if anything, a perfect analogy. When are we supposed to expect recessions? Years that end in eights, nines, zeros, ones, and twos. So, what a big surprise. We had a huge catastrophe. If anything, one of the shortest lived catastrophes I've ever seen. I've been at this game quite a while. Um, where literally it's like, oh, the sky's falling. Oh, no, it isn't. Psych. And then, this was all about finessing monetary policy. And remember bazooka talk? Nobody even remembers that anymore, I bet. But then we had the socialists, of course, who took power through all of this. Why exactly? I have no idea, but they did, and they just jammed through massive socialism, massive government spending, huge, just absolutely staggering increases in government expenditures that I personally think were not justified. But at the same time, too, I can understand, like in a country like China, the baby boomers basically left the workforce through this event window and all moved into retirement, and they all expected cushy Canada pension plan benefits and healthcare benefits. Keep in mind, seniors, of course, obviously go to the doctor a hell of a lot more than working schlubs. And who's going to pay for all that? And so here comes a great reset. We are going to, like in my country, there's one idiot from this window, and really, actually, basically from here, this window here to here, this guy has gone and doubled the national debt of my country in a period of like 5 years, like literally doubled the national debt. And the irony of it all is he's not even a majority governor. Never had a mandate by the population to do any of the shit that he's done here. So as I said, we finally have an election on the other side of this absolute insanity. And I actually think that British Columbia should be a really good proxy. If British Columbia itself actually tilts back conservative, then I think, ironically enough, you might even find that there's great sort of blue wall that you see out of the West Coast that actually might evaporate here down in the States as well, because people are just so upset with the way that these socialists have just completely destroyed our society. And that, of course, is being expressed through this hyperinflation. So anyway, point being, I believe that the market moves in what's called like measured moves. So think of that like A to B and then C to D. The problem with that thinking is it's wonderful if you're down here. Okay, looks like we're going to jam through some stuff. All right, and you can kind of see here A to B in this shorter term picture. Actually, here, why don't we just we can go A to B and then clone that. You got a nice consolidation, and then C to D up here, which takes us up top. So you can kind of see that two-step pattern. I don't know what it is. This is just the way that markets move. And I would do yourself a favor and learn this. The quicker you learn this, the quicker you get this under your tool belt and it's part of your sort of thinking, the easier it's going to be for you to make money in the market. So, in a weird sort of way, you can kind of see how this little pattern. So we had a big rally off the lows. Then we had to go sideways for quite a while. And then the continuation, A, B, C, D. You can see that as well, sort of through this, right? This bigger one there, and there, and there. It's actually a really good lesson for everybody here. What do continuation patterns look like? Right. The problem here is this is all wonderful. If you can identify this part of the market, oh boy, you can make a lot of money because you already know the A to B and you're just waiting for that C to D leg to kick in. And that's exactly what you see happen here. I know this is awfully messy here. We can probably let's see. I think actually this one's clean. Is it? Maybe it isn't. No, it's just as messy. Well, actually, I mean, that's not so bad. Anyway. Well, we're doing a little bit of GAN waves here. I haven't looked at this chart in a while. Anyway, interesting. If you're a fan of Elliott Wave, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Uh-oh. Well, I won't open that can of worms today, but let's just do a new chart just so we can look at this cleanly. I guess we'll do this here, and then we'll go say weekly, and then let's go like that, and oh, nice and simple. Ooh, hey, we got the eclipses on here too. Sexy. All right, so hopefully you can see this a little bit clearer now. All right, so there's our health crisis, manufactured crisis. Seemed a little bit suspicious the way that all played out. Then the reaction rally from basically taking interest rates down to nothing, bailing out all the zombie economies, blah, blah, blah. So that's your A to B. And now, where should this thing basically start petering out? And we should be thinking about, okay, kind of like what you saw through, right, through here as a little mini one. You see how volatile this is. And then here, you see exactly the same thing. So you can see the rally days here are relatively numbered. There's not a hell of a lot more to go here. And if anything, this is a perfect analogy of the end of these moves. Can you kind of see how, the sort of slope of this curve? Look how it was like that. Something like that. So there. Then we go here. And now looks like we are going here. So you can like literally see the market is going parabolic. That's not a good sign. We could, just put on really simple things like, Willie's Brian's Williams percentage R indicator. This was just a really, really simple tool to help me identify overbought or oversold markets. And the rule just simply is, if you see that this moving average is in the overbought zone, it means this market is overbought. And you're probably best just to leave it alone. So something like that. We don't even need to have that on there. This is the Willie is basically just the moving average. So I mean, just remember I just said there a moment ago, right? This was the bottom right in there after, big run up, then consolidation. And, actually, I even teach a really simple trade setup based on trying to hunt for this price pattern, because we kind of remember I had said earlier, we know that markets don't move in a straight line. They usually move in this zigzag pattern. So the question is, can you identify one of these zigzag patterns ahead of time and then simply position yourself? Oh, gee whiz, look at that. This is for anybody who's a student of mine. This is a trade setup actually that I used to even get funded as a prop trader a million years ago. Day trading crude oil, right? You can see one low, two lows, three lows. Look at that nice setup here. Even a nice Wyckoff check of the breakout right there. And hopefully you can all see this is a very, very good example of the market in divergence, where this is nice and low. And yet the price was actually making lower lows. So, and as I had said earlier, yeah, I don't know whether I'd use Willie to identify divergence, probably use different momentum indicators. And the whole point here is that, if you are an investor in stocks, this is not the place to be thinking about buying. This is that the market is trending and it's heading higher. And you should have been buying when the market was not overbought and dipped out of overboughtness. And maybe you got setups or whatever that developed off lower time frame. I might even argue that there was nothing here to really work with. But market does correct, and we went through basically about what is that? That's January all the way through to October, pretty long period. And then we start to firm up coming out of October, setting up that secondary trade leg. But the problem here is, number one, is Willie telling you that it's okay to go and invest your hard-earned money when it's sitting up in this zone up here? I don't think so. Are we coming into a profit taking level based on time tested trade setups, and think of that continuation pattern? Yes, I do think so. So this feels like it's the end of the move, not the beginning of the move. And that's what I'm worried about here right now. I don't know what this looks like. Still got 3 more weeks to go into the election. And what I'm really worried about is what I think that they're doing here is, keep in mind, I think that the 1% would prefer Mr. Trump not be elected. And, the one easy sell whenever it comes to elections is you just simply go to your constituents and you just simply say, are you any better off than you were 4 years ago? That's the easiest sell for Mr. Trump right now. Don't think about the candidates. Don't think about policy. Just simply ask people, how are you doing? Are you better off than you were 4 years ago, or are you worse off? And I think that the 1% is going to try and jam this up as much as possible. Because keep in mind, the public, they never look at price charts. They have no idea what the hell I'm even talking about when I say this. I hate to say it, but probably half of the people watching me right now haven't got a clue what the hell I'm talking about. But I guess just what I'm trying to convey to you is this is actually pretty typical. They're trying to make this market and society, and of course, people vote with their pocketbooks. And if their 401k plan is booming along and feeling, and they look at their statement and they see that, okay, well, over time, the powers that be are moving the market higher and I am getting richer. Well, that forgives a lot of sins of politicians. And that's what I think that they're trying to do here. The problem is, though, is I don't think it's going to work. I think that number one, I think that they hitched their horse to a candidate who is dumb as a fence post. And the only reason she got ahead was simply because of who she slept with in the mayor's office of San Francisco. Number two, and this is the interesting thing for Democrats themselves, is that this candidate was never actually elected by Democrat voters themselves. When she actually was in the presidential nomination running for her political party, she got run out of town on a rail. I mean, she got like no votes at all by any of the sort of Democrat base. So right off the bat, them jamming her into position here, they've alienated a huge portion of their own Democrat base. I would actually argue, even with all the dementia, there are would be people who would vote who said, I voted for Joe Biden for the past 40 years in the US Senate, and I have sworn by him and I will never desert him. I could very easily see a lot of people say that. But with Commie Cammy here, I don't see any of that. So I think that the 1%, they've shot themselves in the foot here. But at the same time, too, I do think that they've sort of set in motion. I did listen to another economist over the weekend say the US economy, like GDP, is just humming along. Growth rates. In fact, who was it that I was listening to? Is a guy who is fairly respected in the marketplace. So this isn't, just such bullshit. It was Hugh Hendry. In fact, I even shared the video in the lounge, I think, yesterday. And I would strongly suggest TRIers watch Hugh's interview. His sort of thinking actually aligns nicely with this, that we are within months of some sort of major top here. And ironically enough, you want to know what he's actually most bullish of? And of course, this is probably, for the growth people in our audience, this is the last thing in the world you want to hear. But he is uber bullish of the bond market. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to, I guess, it's that one. So Hugh is all uber bullish of the bonds. Interesting here, you can see the divergence. Remember, this is our sort of overbought, oversold indicator. Great lesson. Did anybody listen to the Beamish when we were coming into the top of that cycle previously and say, you know what, you better be careful of the bonds and the interest rates. All hell's going to break loose here as we go through this massive cyclic peak, right? And then the Jupiter-Saturn cross was right in this area here. And of course, look what happened. I mean, long-term basis, huge top, and see you later. But the question I would have now is, should we be as bearish of bonds as we were back here? And I think the answer is no. And I even put in the lounge yesterday, I have been thinking about, I have most of my liquid net worth sitting in T-bills. And, I mean, fuck, they were paying me like 5.5% for a risk-free rate. I mean, that's incredible rate of return. Now that short rates are starting to fall, the idea now is to start rolling out the yield curve. So may roll out of the T-bills and into like 2-year, 3-year paper, roll out of the 2-3-year paper into the 5-year paper, roll out of the 5-year paper into the 10-year paper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is like 20-year paper. I don't know whether I'm really ready to actually go and buy this yet, but I definitely like the idea of us going something along these lines. And I wouldn't be too concerned about Willie here. He's an overbought, oversold indicator. So what I would like to see is a nice pullback into this buying window here. And I could see over the next few weeks, as they march the stock market higher here into oblivion. And I wouldn't even be surprised, to be honest with you. I wouldn't even be surprised if on the actual election date, once we actually have a resolution of this insanity, I wouldn't even be surprised if there's some sort of blow off top. And you might even find that on election date, Mr. Trump has announced the winner. I mean, I don't think anybody can really comfortably say who's going to win this thing yet now. And keep in mind, I still fully believe that the 1% are going to try and fix the election. I think that they fixed the election in 20. The question here is, does the American populace have such a negative reaction to Klaus and the fucking over the top communist socialists that Trump just wins by an absolute landslide? It's not even remotely close. But I could very easily see some sort of blow off top into that event window. And it might even be, you might even find that it's a blow off top on stocks into the event window. And of course, that means that the bond market's going to absolutely collapse because these things move in opposite, capital flowing in and out. But what's ending up happening here is that they're actually going to dump the bond market into a buying window. And of course, does that usually happen? Does the public usually panic sell into bottoms? And, if you actually have to sit and actually seriously think about what the answer to that is, then I've completely failed in this mission over the past 10 years. So would it surprise us, keep in mind, this is a weekly price chart, that this thing goes into absolute free fall. The stocks, of course, are booming higher. Hey, it's good times. Trump's back, right? Probably going to be a big fucking tax cut. And all the media talk's going to be about how he's going to absolutely destroy the balance sheet of the United States of America. And interest rates are going to go to the roof and all that. And that actually brings the market into an absolutely fantastic buying window. and long and short of it here, for whatever it's worth, folks, I will be stepping into the four. And I will be, I'm not really that long stocks. There's a few names that I do own. I'm not really like over the top bullish of the stock market. But the money that I do have sitting on the sidelines, sitting in T-bills and money market, I think I'll slowly go in and start accumulating government bonds through that. And it's just simply because I think that good old 50% rules. I definitely think that at some point, and what this reminds me a lot of is the way that the NASDAQ acted after the dot-com bust. And this is kind of cool. What the hell, we'll do another chart on here so you can see this. Boom. So remember this image, and we'll come back to it in a second. And I think QQQ will probably be able to see it on here. Just keep in mind the fear. No, that's not what I want. There we are. The fear cycle, right, is all about bonds. So into the peak of the fear cycle, the bond market goes crazy to the upside. On the other side of the fear cycle peak, the bonds sell off because people want to actually start growing again. They don't want to bury their head in the sand. Well, in the greed part of the cycle, right, everybody goes and buys tons and tons of stock. And they think that the economy will never stop growing. Unfortunately, with this, I guess I'm going to have to do NDX here because you can't see it. But the point is NASDAQ 100, that is technically the QQQs. All right, so here we are. QQQ is nothing more than just an exchange traded fund. All right, so there we are. All right, so there is your dot-com boom. So do you see the similarities in these assets? Let's maybe make this a little easier. We'll go move back, and then we'll go move forward. All right, and then we'll go like so. All right, so there is your dot-com boom, and there is your, respective, looks pretty good, something along those lines. All right, so this is the dot-com boom, right? The greed cycle apex, especially if we have any level oneers watching this video here, this is exactly what you're supposed to be learning over the past few weeks. And actually, you can even see a very similar bull market. Brum, 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 brum. Right into the cycle apex. This is Jupiter Saturn cross. And of course, level oneers, we teach you the Nortel story. John Roth goes on CNBC and says, look at, I'm selling, I'm getting the fuck out. This is ridiculous what you people are doing here. And of course, Alan Blinder, University of Princeton economics, blah, 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 nonsense, making fun of Mr. Roth. But you tell me who was right. Clearly, Mr. Roth was right. But the question here is, would it be in your best interest as an investor to, at this point, say, you know what? Never buy NASDAQ again. This is a waste of money. And do we see a similar situation happening here in the bond market? I mean, maybe we still have another leg to go here. That could very easily be the case. But do you see the similarities here? And the interesting thing is, if you had just simply said, well, at some point down the road, this is why we teach, use the 50% level. Some point down the road, we probably should expect this market to go back to 50% rules. And lo and behold, boink, away we go. And in fact, hindsight 2020, we went substantially beyond. So I would just simply say, from an investment perspective, at some point down the road here, we should start looking for this bond market to start firming up and start doing things like 50% retracements of this very sizable correction. Keep in mind, I mean, this was an absolute wipeout, but that's usually how equity goes. But this is a pretty big drop, 180 all the way down to 80. I mean, that's more than 50% haircut of bonds. That's some serious haircuttage. Could we see a bit more weakness here into Mr. Trump's first term in office? Yeah, I could see that. But at the same time, too, this is not an asset I would want to be thinking about shorting. And then conversely, what bothers me here is, think about this in simplest terms. We want to buy down markets and we want to sell up markets. Would it have been a good idea to get all rah bullish heading into this peak? Would it have been a good idea to get rah bullish heading into this peak? This is pretty common sense stuff. So, fast forward to today. Does it make sense for us to be rah bullish heading into whatever the hell this peak is here? I suppose you could make the argument A to B, C to D. We might still, oh no, take that back. I think our bull markets days are relatively numbered here, folks. I don't know. Looks to me like we're a bit long in the tooth. I wouldn't be surprised if we just have something along these lines. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But at the same time, too, understanding that the people that run this market, the NASDAQ, they've basically had free reign of our society here over the past, I guess 4 or 5 years. Could we find that there's a bit of backlash to these people? Could there be any backlash? And really, I think the easiest way to think about this is, do you think that Mr. Gates is all lovey-dovey with Mr. Trump? I think Mr. Biden was a career politician, and he was just going to do whatever he had to do to get his political agenda. And if it meant playing footsie with people like Mr. Gates, well, so be it. Got to get it done. I don't think Mr. Trump is nearly as friendly with Mr. Gates. And also, too, remember, and I'd be curious to see whether you guys can remember, who was elected president of the United States of America right here? Was it a Democrat or was it a Republican? Right there. And how did Mr. Gates and all of the tech, fucking 1%, kind of interesting how they're all trying to turn us into like zombies that just sit and swipe screens 24/7. Did the political landscape change at all and actually support people that don't like this space? And if you don't know the answer to that, yeah, maybe do a little bit of research. So I would suggest that, and interestingly enough, Mr. Trump has also said too that one of his priorities, I heard in the speech the other day, was he plans to try and pay down as much of this debt as possible, which is fascinating because that will remove supply from the marketplace. And keep in mind that half of the hegemony game by these 1% international bankster crooks is to basically use US treasuries as sort of the world currency. Well, if Mr. Trump says, well, you know what, I'm going to take the US treasuries out of the circulation, what's that going to do for, keep in mind that, are you going to really give yourself money? Let's back this up. Are you going to give your money to Winnie the Pooh? Like, okay, I'm saving for my retirement, and my financial planner says I should have some of my money in guaranteed investments and some of my money in risk investments. I mean, that's what you do as in financial planning. And my vote for guaranteed investments, I'm going to go and give my money to Winnie the Pooh or Vladimir Putin, or even really, for that matter, Christine Lagarde. Can I trust any of these people with my money? I think the answer is an unequivocal no. Look what the stupid idiot in my country has done over the past 5 years. He's doubled the national debt. In 5 years' time, who the fuck gave this guy authority to do that? And what does that imply about the purchasing power of the existing debt that was in existence beforehand? Oh, it means that it's all been diluted. And I don't know whether you've seen lately. You want to see a absolute disaster in the making? An absolute train wreck. And I'll go on record. Somebody hold me to account. I don't know if I should do this. I'm running out of screens. All right, well, let's throw out another screen here for you. Let's look at the Chinese currency. And the sad thing is that the stupid idiot that's in charge of my country right now, he actually hasn't had to deal with the fact that he is absolutely destroying the purchasing power of his nation's currency. And he doesn't even realize it. He's so stupid. I mean, the guy is like as thick as a fence post. But if you go and double the amount of the nation's debt, I don't know what the hell's a damn symbol, stupid thing. Okay, so it's not 6D. Is it D6? Nope. Is it, man, for some reason it was D for a while. Is it C6? I think that's half the reason why they did this is because they don't want anybody paying attention to what they're about to do to this thing. All right. Is it, there it is. Look at this chart. Oh my goodness. I mean, this has got disaster written all over it. I mean, there's the original top in the currency. I mean, if we're going to do things like fog and bombs, oh my goodness, this basically says, yeah, this currency is going to go out of business. Am I going to go and give, and keep in mind, if I go and buy government of Canada bonds, then that means that I have to go and buy Canadian dollars because I can't buy the Canadian bonds in US dollars. That means I have to go and buy these Chinese dollars and then go and buy the government bond and hope to God this currency doesn't collapse. But you just saw what I was saying there about the US stock market and AB equals CDs and continuation patterns, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's a very realistic look at this Chinese currency. And if you go and double the national debt in 5 years, and this is the one thing that pisses me off about like sites like TradingView and stuff. Did the Canadian dollar exist before the year 2000? I mean, come on. This is so stupid. I mean, fuck this thing. It has a long, long history, and the actual storied history of the Canadian currency would actually give us a much clearer image of what's going on here. But very simply put, the reason why this peaked through this window was because George Bush and all of his cronies, of course, peaked oil prices, and Canadian dollar is nothing more than a proxy on oil prices. And what did Mr. Trump, what did I say Mr. Trump said that he was going to do to oil prices the day he is elected in office? Anybody remember what I said? And you should all know this. I mean, you fancy yourself traders, you better respect this. Oh, Glass Insights, you're here in Canada? I didn't know you were here in Canada. I didn't realize that. Not interesting. That's right, Adam. You know, the interesting thing would be Adam's down there in California. And I wonder if in 3 weeks' time, because keep in mind, Ronald Reagan won California once a million years ago. That would be awesome if the socialists were just fucking run out of the state of California. Frankly speaking, I don't quite understand why California is as socialist and insanely leftist as they are. Because, I mean, I like hanging out with Ed, I like hanging out with Adam. They do not strike me as socialists. I do not quite understand how those socialists have such a power base there in California. But anyway, point of the matter here is looking at this Chinese currency, this has got disaster written all over it. And the interesting thing about this, remember, I just showed you the bot setup, right, on things like the stock market and how obvious that was. What do you think here? Do you think this looks slightly telegraphed? Now, where do you think that 25 level is? That's where you should enter the trade. Could it potentially be right around exactly where we are right now? I wonder. Survey says, boom, look at that, folks. So the irony of it all is that this is exactly where we're supposed to be short. And that is our price target. Like, look at that. 45 freaking cents on the dollar. Keep in mind, the Canadian dollar was trading at a premium to the US dollar when oil prices were peaking there. So, what does that imply about the potential for oil prices going forward? All of these people that have come to this country here over the past 10, 20 years, they don't even realize that they actually came to Canada through a Canadian bull cycle. And what's fascinating is I cannot find anybody here other than a whole bunch of baby boomers who are all in their, senior citizens years, and they're having a hard time remembering, whether they put on clean underpants this morning. I can't find any of these people that are new to Vancouver and the lower mainland that even lived here in the 1990s, let alone 1980s, 70s, 60s, 50s. Like, all of these people have all come to this country and come to like Vancouver and the lower mainland since the last cycle pivot. They have no idea what shit show they are about to, they have walked into. And, as technicians, we have to respect what we see on the screen here, folks. This is a really, really bad looking chart. And FYI, most of my net worth is out of Chinese dollars. I have enough Chinese dollars to basically pay my tax bill and my rent here for this hyperinflated, stupid society that I'm forced to live in for the next few years. The rest of my net worth is comfortably in US dollars and crypto, right? Bitcoin as a hedge. I would strongly suggest that if you are in China, you better really be careful here. And that's the sad part about it is, of course, nobody in China right now has even the slightest idea what a sort of banana republic currency actually looks like. I might even argue that there is our trading range, right there to there. Yeah, I would feel very comfortable with that. This could get damn ugly here, folks. So, well, I mean, opportunity is now here. I might actually argue if you have the ability, maybe go and throw on a put option. Doesn't, maximum risk of the purchase price, the maximum risk of the trade would be the purchase price of the option. And if for some reason this thing can hold in here and energy prices tick back up, which I suppose would be Commie Cammy wins the election here, and the communists win the elections that you have. And like I said, you're going to get a sneak preview of what the sort of general North American electorate looks like, feels like, sounds like here on October 19th. And I might be sorely mistaken, right? It might be that the socialists retain power and everybody wants to continue the hyperinflation. I don't know. I've often told all of you, don't get into the business about predicting the future, because especially when it comes to elections, none of us know what the fuck's going to happen in the future. None of us. Having said that, I trade setups, and I've seen this setup so many times in my career, and I've traded it so many times. I feel very comfortable here just going and buying a put option and just waiting for the fireworks. And the worst part about currency trading is that it'll be like, la, 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 nothing's happening, nothing. And then all of a sudden, one day, boom! And there's nothing you can do about it. If you miss the boom day, it's gone. You want to see a really good example of that? And actually, it's kind of funny because I've been barking about these. I love going into these guys' office. And actually, I was going to do it, but I forgot to do it this past week. But just going into these people's offices and just saying, "Oh, so how's it going, felons? You guys are actually now convicted felons. You do realize you're a convicted felon, don't you?" But who am I talking about? I'm talking about, where should we do this? Oh, that was the NASDAQ. So I guess we got a couple of these NASDAQs on here. Too many charts. My head's going to explode. I guess this is the only one I can really use, because this was the old one that was all drawn up here, right? Bonds. I guess I got two bond charts on here, so let's go with this one. Look at this train wreck. Holy Shiite Muslim. I mean, interesting. I wasn't planning on today being a shit on Canada Day, but wow, look at this. What a disaster. So we run a club at TRI where, holy shit, is it already 12:30? Oh, crap. Well, anyway, I guess I'll save this for another day. But look at what this, I mean, this is how bad China Day is, right? The corruption is so bad that this Canadian bank was just handed the biggest fine in SEC history for their corrupt business practices. And we've been talking about shorting to this bank in particular for quite some time. And what a great analogy of what a piece of shit this thing is. And the irony of it all is that the people that are in government right now are basically in bed with these people. So you might actually find that this company actually goes out of business, because now they've actually admitted they have pled guilty to felonies. And now, because they've done that, now the civil suits will start. And this is down in the United States. If this was just in Canada, then you probably would see that the oligarchs, the 1%, they would push this all under the carpet and they would try and bury this, and nobody would be held to account, because that's how corrupt this society is. But this is down in the States. And I can guarantee you the lawyers are just licking their chops about and I would imagine they're probably going to start lining up, kind of like the way that OJ, he didn't get destroyed in criminal court, he got destroyed in civil court. And I wouldn't be surprised. These guys have actually admitted to guilt and pled guilty in criminal court. So in civil court, these guys are just absolutely toast. I wouldn't be surprised if this company no longer exists 5 years from now. That's how big this story is. And of course, try and remember this, folks, because right at the top of the market, of course, this is where everybody was in love with these Canadian banks and in love with this stupid Trudeau idiot. And what you had to learn as an investor was This was a very dangerous time for you to be uber bullish of a name like this. You have to be thinking down when you see a huge move up like this. You have to be thinking the other direction. And so, here we are in the stock market with everything booming higher, your NASDAQ looking like this. That's not the time when you want to be thinking bullish. That's actually the time when remember we had said there a moment ago, right? This was the time when you see these beautiful W's, especially on a weekly price chart. That's the time to get bullish. Here, I don't think so. So this is concerning, folks. This has been, if anything, that little sort of walkthrough of TD, pretty good analogy that, be careful getting bullish at the top of markets. All right. I suppose we should probably come full circle and talk about crypto with you guys and girls, because that's really what drives a lot of this audience. So my apologies for taking so much time talking about politics and stuff. As I've said repeatedly of late, I don't really like the idea of us making any grandiose predictions right now about what's going to happen here. Now, I think we got to let all of these elections and stuff. Isn't that weird how I keep putting these damn vertical lines on here, yet they just mysteriously disappear? Anyway, we should have on here election, and unfortunately, it's going to have to be after this one. So, ironically enough, and it's funny, we have one lady who's on the site fairly regularly, and I've made reference to this repeatedly. Her husband also has taken the course and is part of the community, and he wears a cute bow tie. Last time I saw him in public, and so every time I draw these bow tie patterns, I always think of Casey, and I would argue this is exactly normal. It looks to me like we have clearly a consolidation. The market actually tried to break lower, and then somebody said, "No, I don't think so. Get your ass out of there." And I do think that this is a function of the securitization of Bitcoin here. The reason why it's kind of gone sideways through all of this. I'd also say too, big political unknown here. And interesting, I am hearing a lot of talk that crypto special interest groups are funding the US political campaign here, just absolute insane amounts of dollars. I do think to a certain degree, of course, Mr. Fink, he obviously, now that he's in on this with his ETFs, he has a vested interest in making damn sure this thing does not go down. And you see where the ETF came public. So this is where all of this sort of ETF purchasers, and really what we're talking about there is things like the big pension funds, index funds, mutual funds, right? And then, Joe Sixpack owns Fidelity funds and stuff like that. They don't even really know what the hell they're buying, but those are the people that probably bought most of these ETFs. And actually, there are I remember I used to work with this guy at Top Step, Bob, I am a dicko. That wasn't his name, but that's what we used to call him because he was such a jerk. But anyway, he used to run a fund of funds. So those are the people that bought this Bitcoin ETF. I would imagine actually Joe Sixpack probably doesn't even really have that much of an interest in any of this, even now. So no way in hell, Mr. Funk, whatever the hell his name is. No way he's going to let this thing break this range. It's parked, and notice every time it gets down into sort of our bottoming area, there was this wicked tail. I guess it was over here where they did actually hit the 50,000 mark very briefly. And instantly that got taken right back up. And I think that this asset has been completely and utterly securitized. And so as a result, it is completely and utterly controlled by Mr. Fink. So when Mr. Fink thinks that this thing is done, man, I would get the fuck out of his way. This thing will collapse. I don't think he thinks it's done. Every time you hear him talk on sites like CNBC and stuff, it's, well, his mutual funds are all about the future, and oh, we're all optimists, and Bitcoin is your awesome hedge against the money printing and all that. I think gold to a certain degree has been usurped by by Bitcoin. I might argue gold and Bitcoin will probably share the stage going forward. I think gold is being repriced as we speak, along with silver and all that. I mean, it's very normal part of the cycle. I do have actually fairly sizable upside objectives and expectations for gold and gold stocks going forward. And I would expect Bitcoin will probably move along the same fashion. The one thing I don't like about what's happened here is they haven't relieved the technical picture here, in my opinion. In fact, actually, if you look at the momentum picture, you can see everything's kind of just going sideways, especially if I'm going to use something like Willie, try and tell me if something's overbought or oversold. Again, this is a great indicator for that. You can clearly see we were ridiculously oversold. You were best just to leave this thing alone. We have corrected, and Willie is no longer stupid. We're kind of just sitting middle of the road here. We're not even really oversold. I mean, when we were in a situation like this, that's like, holy crap. You should be paying attention. Here, I could very easily see us work our way back up for the next cycle peak. That's very possible. It's not compelling to a guy like me. So like, yeah, okay, probably gonna move higher. Where I want to find those 5x, 10x, 20x names. Is Bitcoin likely to go 10x here? I find that hard to believe. I mean, are we really expecting $600,000 Bitcoin going forward? I don't know. I could very easily see things like, remember I talked about continuation patterns. So I think we could see A to B, and then we clone that. And our correction low was that 50,000. So C to D, where does that take us? 107,000. I think that's realistic. If I'm not mistaken, I think I remember Chico Crypto Tyler saying that he was thinking, maybe 110, 120,000 or something like that might be a realistic objective for Bitcoin this cycle. I could see that. So, Mr. Fink, of course, his ETF went long here. And the irony of it all is that, and it'd be interesting if you guys can even remember this. What is a typical percentage return in the stock market? If you can hit this number, you have beat more than 90% of all investors ever. I mean, half the reason why we play the shitcoin market and altcoins, of course, is that those paltry returns are laughable. And we can dramatically outperform that if we just, put our heads on straight and buy against bottoms, sell against tops. You can make huge money in this space. And it's so ironic each cycle, right? We go into minting new Bitcoin crypto millionaires, and then half of them get all wiped out when we go down the other part of the cycle where everything has to correct. I mean, it's almost funny watching this. Millionaires broke, millionaires broke. And interesting how in Bitcoin itself, they never did do this correction that I've been expecting all along here. But anyway, point of the matter here is if we go over and look at something like the total crypto market, this is actually a bit of a different picture. So here, there's the top from that cycle. And you can see that here over in the crypto market, this is minus Bitcoin and Ethereum, we actually came all the way down to mountain man level. So not only did we do things like 50% retracements, we actually came all the way down to mountain. So I think you could make the argument that technically this has at least been cleaned up. The only problem is I don't know whether I really even have a bottom here yet. what it kind of looks like to me here is this is some sort of massive, and keep our fingers crossed that the bull prevails, but this kind of looks like some sort of massive, almost like uh, big fractal here, something like that. I certainly don't have a situation where we have higher highs and higher lows to justify getting all bullish. And if anything, I hate to say it, but this kind of looks to me like buying zone, selling zone, and we are playing ourselves some reload zone ping pong. Buy, sell, buy, sell. And if we actually look at the short-term picture, I think what happened here is they went after a liquidity pool, which is pretty typical. Tune in to Julian. He absolutely loves talking about his liquidity pools. Following the stop run up top here, liquidity pools, they got put it pretty well defined in. And they start working their way back down. So just off of this range, reload zones. I don't even think we've done that yet. I might even make the argument that we're kind of just stuck between reload zones. This recent low here, if we do a reload zone off of that, boom. So we could be drawing boxes there to there kind of idea. So top end of your range, notice how they rallied it up into mountain there and rejected. Counter trend rally, back up into against those highs. And then we kind of rolled over here. So even now, I mean, keep drilling in, drilling in, drilling in. You can see what I had sort of done here, sort of market symmetry wise. And I kind of think that the whole market's going to do this. You can see how we just sort of went straight up. Again, here's another one of those illustrations of continuation patterns. So A to B. And once we hit this point up here, and it doesn't really matter anyway, up in here, being bullish up here, you're kind of asking for trouble. And sure enough, boom, 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 big M top, back down we go. So I might even argue you can see A to B, C to D. We probably have to come back down to this level. Does this all happen before the election? Could be. And I'm skeptical as to what's going on here in the near term, but I really don't see anything other than just a huge trading range. But what I do like, and I've talked to you guys at length about this in the past here, is I really do like the idea that they're setting some sort of base for a move higher. Kind of like, we saw with the NASDAQ. And I think we also showed the on Bitcoin, a nice consolidation window. There's the peak way up there. Then we consolidate, and then that sets the base for things like bot setups, A, B, C, D, away we go. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here right now, right? And, if we're thinking bots, 1 kilo, what are we, drug addicts? 1 kilo, 2 kilos, 3 kilos, I don't know, something like that. But what I really want to see, ideally, would be, can I please get a nice W to come in through there? So that's kind of what I'm looking for here going forward. Might come in a little bit lower, might come in down here. And if we do take out this low, then that means we have to start the whole count all over again. So we have 1, so that's good. We have 2, that's good. Gonna need to see 3. And then if we can get that third, then we can start drawing our bot setups. And where's that 25 level? Could probably even do it right now. Of course, this chart's probably impossible to read, but let's just go boom, boom, something like that. All right, we'll go bot setup. So 33.66, then we'll clone that. And off of that low, then we'll draw our bots levels, boosh, and there's 25. So let's zoom in here and let's see what we got. So this would be the level, if we want to see a continuation pattern, this is the level I'd like to see it set up off of. This teal line right here, 25. So we got one low. We got two lows. You can see if we zoom in here. Oops. Like so, just so you can see. Where are we right now? We are way up here. Yuck. So I would prefer that this get its butt back below that level. And if we're lucky, just come along here, test this low in earnest, candle body low is your trade location. Put in a nice W, maybe even break above this trend line, give us a nice W on the other side of the trend line, and whoa, we get ready for rock and roll. So kind of momentum wise, that's kind of what I want to see. And of course, not really shocking. I want to see this happen on the other side of that big political event. So not really in a big hurry here right now. Would prefer that they consolidate this, clean it up, then get it on the other side of the election, and then I'm going to be looking for fireworks. So anyway, that's the broader market. Interesting. We still have on this funny little short on Ethereum from way up top. And I actually don't really want to even touch this, although it doesn't look like it's on this screen. It doesn't really matter. We're short from up top here, took some profits here, took some more profits here. And now it's just really, okay, what the hell are they doing here? Here's 1 kilo, 2 kilos, 3 kilos. This actually even looks a little bit better than Bitcoin. We did, of course, have, I guess there's Mountain Man there. So we did have the market come down at least to that 50% roll. So that's good to clean up that technical scenario. And what I really want to see is I want to see some W's. So it is kind of interesting how they rallied it off of the lows here recently. So if you're sort of studying the market, you can very easily see top end of the range, bottom end of the range, and right now they're just playing ping pong. So you can see that we've got reload long zone down at the bottom here. I always like overlapping reload zones. Makes for pretty good trade location. Like so. And reload short zone, not really a big surprise. This thing stalled out against these highs. And so the same thing with the Bitcoin, same thing with the total market. I don't really see a hell of a lot happening here until we're over, oh boy, this is a 4-hour chart. So really until way over here. So I wouldn't really read a hell of a lot into what you see here. Hell, you could even make the argument that this is also a reload short zone. So this is just going to be really chopped Vegas. Right there, up to there. I could and remember I had said earlier, overlapping reload zones. So I love this as a shorting level up here. And I love this as a buying level down here. And I think all they're going to do for the next couple of weeks is just play ping pong here. So that's unfortunately why I'm not really to pound the table of really much right now. What I will say, and this is what I've been doing on the site, is we've got this fun little old lady portfolio. And I tried to do it through DeFi. That didn't really go very well. But anyway, I did get some assets. We do have them, so they're there. But I'm going to move everything over to like Kraken and Coinbase and stuff. And I spent Friday, the end of Friday, just going through name after name after name. If I'm going to buy, because keep in mind, I think it's important that we all remember this. This is what we have staring us in the face. So I don't know when this consolidation finishes, but when it does, I could see a very substantial rally. I don't know whether we're going to be able to get up into the multiple hundreds of thousands. like I said, I do like Tyler's kind of thinking that maybe we top out somewhere around 100, 120, 130. I mean, if they want to take this thing up top here, I've said all along, if we get to the point where I can actually buy a house with the Bitcoins that I have for Liam, I will hit the bid and I will go buy Liam that house. And then once I've done that, I am officially retiring from social media and you will never hear from me again. I can absolutely guarantee you that without a shadow of a doubt. So if anything, you probably don't want this to pop up there if you like listening to the Beamish. But point here, and that would be the end of this adventure. It's been a fun 10 years, but I'm out of here. But anyway, so I'm still just waiting for that event. Maybe Fjord has invested a bunch of TRI assets in a bunch of names fundamentally that he likes. And if they go running up, and it gets to the point where I can comfortably buy a house for Liam, I will sell that asset, go buy Liam the house, and I'm done with social media and interacting with the public. So that's the deal with Spirit. We're on one side of the fence or the other. And interestingly enough, what does Spirit want here? Does Spirit want me to continue this damn 10-year crazy ass adventure barking at you guys every single week, or is Spirit let me be done and I'll go off and I can retire in quiet? It's up to Spirit. It's up to you, Jojo, whatever your plan is here. So I definitely think that there is money to be made here over the next year or so in this space. The question here is, do they have to hit the reset button? All our talk earlier about the way these stock indexes all seem to be coming into some fruition period and the way the bond market seems to be coming into some sort of buy window. Is there some sort of big whoa, boom kind of thing? And actually, it was interesting. I saw a gentleman on the site I haven't seen on the site in a while. And I actually, I used to extol because I thought, he became a very good trader. He learned everything that I wanted to teach him. And as a result, I think he's probably doing pretty well in life. I saw him on the site the other day. I was a bit surprised. But he was famous, and I tried to make him famous for coming in and buying Bitcoin through that dump there. And I can absolutely tell you through this window, which I think is very similar to the window that we're going through right now, I think actually there's a lot of similarities with this, and nobody in the crypto space was looking for this absolute face rip down here. And he actually went in and bought this level here. And then, the other side of this, they always say history rhymes. It doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. But look how quickly following that event, this stupid thing went all the way up to like what, 50, 60 G's. And I even remember when he was doing videos for this site, he actually came up with that 4669 price objective. And frankly speaking, as an objective for this bull run, that was spot on. So could we see a similar situation like this? Absolutely. I don't see any reason. If anything, the fact that everybody and their brother doesn't see something like this coming leads me to believe that there's probably a very good chance that it could happen. So, as I said, I'm not reading anything into this before the election. Could we have some sort of, where's the election here? Could we have some sort of dump between now and, I don't know, let's even say like the first quarter of the new year? Just a nice consolidation in here, bring the market down, and then ramp it up for into next spring, next summer, next fall? Absolutely. I could easily see that. So with that thought, I actually just started going through the list and starting to actually map out exactly where it is I want to start acquiring this stuff, because I've just sat here mostly in cash. I mean, I had a big chunk of the cash stolen from me, cocksucking crypto fuckers. But through most of the past 6, 8 months, I have done absolutely nothing in this space. And you probably sit here with these videos going, when is this guy going to talk about shit he's actually buying? I've bought actually quite a few shit coins and, Solana kind of stuff. But as you can see from this image, I think it's now time to start seriously thinking about acquiring. So I did like a 3 or 4 hour video on Friday. I only got about halfway through the list. of names, where it is I want to work bids, where I want to start acquiring this stuff. And there are names that you can see a name like this. I can't really justify coming in here, but I can definitely think about picking some of this up down at like $1.50 and just name after name after name. And this is what I did on Friday. I'll do the second part of this video. These are the little old lady holdings that we have. This is half the list. And you can see just name after name. I have all of the alerts all ready to go, all of the levels. And as soon as these alerts go off, boom, I go in and I start buying. But unfortunately, that isn't here. And if anything, kind of like what you saw in the newsletter that we put out here for today, if I did buy stuff, and it's kind of fun playing over here on the crypto page, if I did go and buy stuff like this, now I'm actually getting fills on sell orders, not buy orders, sell orders. So, this is an interesting one. Just because of DeFi, it's such a bitch to get fills on these damn things. I think I kind of fucked this up though, but nonetheless, the order is working now. So we'll see. Do I get my second double off? This is a really good example of how I like to play the market. So you notice I came in here with my original capital, sold half on a double, sold half on a double, sold half on a double, boom, 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 boom. Then I just sit and wait and do nothing. Then I take my original capital. And as soon as I think that we finish going down, I start acquiring again. So this is a good example of the first car. We'll do that in teal. The second car, which we took the original capital, and now we go and buy another one. And here we go with the doubles train again. I should have gotten a second double off on this, but nobody's perfect in this world. Give Brian a bit of a break. But very simply put, especially if I get this second fill, there's no reason why you can't draw your reload zones and wait for this thing to dip back down into reload zone and look to put on a third car. And that's the way, maybe you've seen in years gone by, this is the way that these silly markets, especially venture capital, can make you stinking rich. Is that by the time we actually get to the end of these moves, wherever the hell they may be, and some of these cryptocurrencies, I mean, it's insane how high they go into the end of the cycle, which we know is coming up next November, not now, but next November. Well, into the end of the cycle, you'd have on as many of these cars as possible on your car carrier. And then when you start coming into sort of the end of the rally window, that's when you just go and liquidate everything. And, the question, this is a good example. Question is, how many cars can I get with this one original purchase? How many cars can I get on my car carrier that were all financed with just the one purchase? And that's the way that you get rich at this game. It's not just buying once and then just holding on indefinitely. And, if the thing doubles, add more. That's stupidity. What you really want to do is you want to buy, especially at bottoms end of ranges with W's, blah, blah, blah. You don't necessarily have to sell half on a double, but I definitely like selling halves on doubles because then I de-risk as fast as possible. You could even say, you know what, I'm only going to sell one double, but you can see here's a great example where, if I had just left it at one, well, thing comes right back down and you missed all of these sells. And how do you know that this thing's going to stop at 2? How do you know it's going to stop at 3? Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6. I have sell half on a double 4 order working at like 2.5 cents on this thing. It just never filled. Well, it's no big deal. But the point here is, am I buying right there right now? No. Right. And, it's ironically enough, this is almost perfect. But what a surprise. We did it on good old Donald Trump and his meme coin. And if I understand correctly, I think he's actually shilling another meme coin. He's doing a big ICO or something. Well, it's the same logic. I mean, no difference. This is the first time I've come in. And hopefully you see big fat W's. Oh, what a big surprise. Brian's buying. I did miss a really good ad trade there because you can see the W that came in there, but I was lazy. Did get my double off, so I've de-risked this thing. And oh, what a big surprise. You find that Brian is more than happy to come in and buy that original position, the second car, should we dip right back down against these lows. I'll be happy to buy this position back. But again, am I buying right there? No. If you didn't buy it, well, you missed the boat and don't chase. So that's sort of your market summary here. I hope that helps. And as I said, for site members, I've gone through and I've mapped out every single, and this one, look at this. This guy actually, I might even get a fill. I think you heard me earlier say, I love overlapping reload zones. That's my favorite. So notice, of course, probably a good idea to color it green since we are bulls. Beautiful reload zone. If I can sneak in and grab some of this candle body lows for trade location, more than happy to pick some of that up. Now you tell me, any money to be made on this down the road? Not tomorrow, but maybe next summer? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Any money to be made on this thing at all? Holy jeez. Remember, these kids, they all get stinking rich through the big bull run, and then they get absolutely wiped out through the bear. I'm not necessarily saying that this thing is a bull even today, but this is what the little old lady portfolio does, is it forces itself to come in against the bottom ends of ranges and just acquire. And actually, we did do this last cycle through here. The only problem is DeFi, I completely fucked it up and I lost the coins like an idiot. So Brian, stay on exchanges. Brian, pretty good at what he does. I'm very good at buying when others are crying and selling when others are yelling. I'm not that technically savvy. So when it comes to things like managing wallets and addresses and keeping not your keys, not your coins, I'm not really that smart at that stuff. That's what's yours here at TRI for. And he's very, very good at that. So I just defer that to him. Me, now I'm just comfortably back on centralized exchanges. I'm just going to do what I do: buy against lows, sell against highs, de-risk as fast as possible, and just let the market let you get rich. I mean, just give yourself permission to get rich. There's so much freaking money to be made in this space, but you have to force yourself to come in and buy when other people are not interested. And then when the bimbo across the street who doesn't really know what the hell she's doing, but flashes the big $1 million smile and everybody thinks she's awesome, comes in and talks about buying crypto and on social media at the very top of the market, you have to have the professionalism to go, you know what, that's not a smart idea. I'm going to do the exact opposite. In fact, dear, you want to buy this? I will sell you the coins you want to buy up top. You want to buy them off me? Merry Christmas. Here you go. Can you do that? Tell you, a lot of hot-blooded men cannot do that. It's impossible for them to do that. They are the Gucci sweater wearers, and they will always buy the top of the markets, shill about how wonderful things are at the top. But you have, as a professional, you have to have the professionalism to actually be doing the exact opposite of that. Can you? I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this in the crypto space for 10 years. I've made some great money in this space. Haven't lost. In fact, the only money that I've lost in this space is when some crypto cocksucker steals money from me. In the marketplace, I have a great time because I know what I'm doing. But if I have to actually start jousting with these computer people, that's when I start failing. So anyway. Okay, what time is it? That's got to be around the top of the hour, right? Yep, there we go. Didn't really see any questions. If you did have questions that you posted, try and put them in the daily brief request room. As I said, I didn't see any questions earlier today. I'll circle back around on the Q&A document in tomorrow's daily brief for the site. And if you have a question and I didn't really address any of you guys here today, my apologies. Surprised actually 2 hours went by as quick as it is. But this is a really good example where this might be something I might be interested in. And you can see where I've got my bids working, and I might even be posting on the site later on today. I actually did some buying. So if you are a site member, I did like a 3 hour video Friday afternoon where I just went name by name by name by name. And I think I might do the same thing tomorrow. Mondays are usually a quiet day. And just map out all the levels. I've only done half of the list here so far. But as you can see, I've got a pretty good idea of where it is I want to be trying to buy on a lot of these. I really like Danny's spell down in here. Geez, that sure looks interesting, eh? And actually, this is a good one, right? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, somebody who did help me buy some of this, they actually have some of this. And so it's good that it's on Kraken. So maybe that means we can actually move that over there. So I wouldn't mind getting off of sort of the whole ledger thing, because that didn't go very well for me. I suppose if I want to own coins, like I've got Liam's Bitcoin on the ledger and Liam's Ethereum, but I have no interest in touching them. So as a result, I'm not doing anything. And actually, I want to see a really cool trade. Our Vaca trade. I still think Novogratz wants to get his money back. And, I can just imagine getting rid of that stupid Luna tattoo on his shoulder is going to cost an arm and a leg. So we actually went and bought some of this UST. It had a huge run up. Unfortunately, my buddies that I bought it with didn't really want to sell any up top. But here we are, and look at the bottom that's come in basically off the same level again. So clearly somebody thinks that there's some value down in this. This is an interesting contrarian story, right? I don't think if you went out in the public, you could get 5 people in the public to buy this. Having said that, you know how much I like W's. So obviously a name like that, very compelling to me. But I've already got some, so I don't need any. We're calling this our gold-plated Vaca trade. And if you know what vacas are, if this thing ever captures its parity, Mike Novogratz will be happy. And I think that's what he wants, because he took a really big haircut on this thing. I'm sure he does not want this thing to die until he gets his money back. And so, this is a really good example of buying when they're crying. And should this thing actually get its act together, wow, huge home run for us. But, don't take too big of bets, small bets. If this thing does work, then we'll all be eating gold-plated vodka in our next big TRI meetup. Probably, I'm going to say maybe the winter of 2026. That's probably when I'll plan to do another big group meetup, because it'll be on the other side of the big bull run. So, okay, I think I'm going to leave the rant at that. Have yourselves a great rest of your day. Thank you, DDBB, for the kind best wishes for Lily and I this afternoon. If you don't know, I end all of these broadcasts off with a wish for all of you to say a good karmic wish for Liam. He is low functioning autistic. He lives a very difficult life. And as I tell all of you, after I'm done working on the site and barking at all of you, now I have to go to my real job, which I embrace, and I have embraced since the day my wife passed. This has not been an easy life at all. I would never wish this on anyone, including cock-sucking, silver spoon sucking politicians that have a fucking easy life, and they don't even realize how difficult life can be. But I live a very, very difficult life with my son. And I have the easy part. He has the hard part. I will never discount his life. He has an absolute shitty life. And I've often said that when I get on the other side, I'm going to have a long conversation with this God person, whoever the fuck they are, as I am very, very disappointed in this God person actually forcing a soul to actually have to live this existence. Anyway, well, I'm not quite sure where all that came from. But if you could all wish us, yeah, love and positive karmic wishes and feelings. And most importantly, can you all just say a prayer that Brian can be the best dad he can possibly be, as I need as much help to be the best support system this beautiful soul can possibly have. That, and that's my request of all of you is can you please just ask the good Lord to enable Brian to be as much of a support for Lily as possible. All right, wow, there you go. That's an interesting broadcast, a little bit different. As I said, we're coming into this big politically event. I don't think it's a good idea for anybody to make any big bets ahead of this. So a lot of this was kind of rhetoric and sort of, mindless rant. So, just all I want to see everybody here in the new year, right? Um, Nobody has any permission to go and blow themselves up between now and the new year. It's going to be a pretty wild ride. So, if anything, pop some popcorn, enjoy the show, and let's get ourselves ready for this coming bull run, which I think is going to be pretty nice. But it probably doesn't start developing until maybe the first or second quarter of the new year. All right, everybody. Have yourselves a great day. PMA for the win. Slow and steady wins the race. All the best. Hugs and kisses. The only love Brian saying is bye for now.